La. Welcome to Episode Stung, Take Stung, Episode 2, Take 2 of Ahlaang O'Day with Dr. J. My name is Jusquan. I host Ahlaang O'Day with Dr. J, and this is an episode re-recorded all about skuskaajuu, basketball, and Ahlaang O'Day radio. I wanted to release an extended version of episode 2, so I am releasing it here on my YouTube channel, as well as link to other listening platforms like podcast channels. This podcast is all about the Haida language, specifically Hodkill, Northern Haida language, or the Old Masset dialect of the Haida language. I speak about learning, strengthening, speaking, and understanding Hodkill. For many of us on the Northwest Coast and throughout native British Columbia, listening to CFNR, Canada's First Nations radio station, has been a way to connect to other native communities that are not in close proximity, especially during the time of the all-native basketball tournament, when CFNR announces basketball games throughout the tournament. My late father, Kwiiyaans, played an integral role in the introduction of play-by-play announcing of basketball games for the all-native basketball tournament as a young man in Prince Rupert. This podcast tells part of that story. And my purpose of connecting it to language is to promote the announcing of our games in our languages. And we can already look to other nations who have exemplified this. There's the Cree and I believe Ojibwe play-by-play calling of the NHL games, as well as games being called in Inuktitut on APTN. And I believe New Hulk Radio regularly calls basketball games in their language. And this past Christmas 2025, I myself called a number of games, I think 3 in total, at the annual Christmas Classic basketball tournament in Outlagay in Old Masset. I called the games in Hodkill, the Haida language, for Balance Media. This connective thread between the role my late father Kwiiyaans had in development of native radio on the Northwest Coast, connecting it through sport, a really important aspect of connecting native communities together through this media. And for this tournament, especially the cultural roots of the tournament, the historical roots of the tournament, truly connect and strengthen ties along the coast every year. So the role of radio in delivering that is an important one to uphold and to remember. You know, my obvious connection, emotional connection to this story, and my lens, purely looking at it through the role, of my father, is not to say that there are not many people and organizations, and stations over the years, and managers, and of course, my dad's longtime friend and fellow announcer, Wild William Wesley, who I spoke to about this very episode, was a great friend of my dad and his fellow announcer for decades for CFNR radio and their delivery of the action, the play-by-play action to communities up and down the coast. I also connect in this episode not only the impact and importance that my dad played, and of course William Wesley, as I mentioned, but the legacy picked up by my brother, Iljuuwaas, or K'uuk Iiwa, Will Bedard, and my son, Wiijaa, who have both delivering basketball play-by-play, especially here on Haida Gwaii through Haida Gwaii radio, and then my brother through CFNR, and then my son through CFNR for the Junior All-Native Basketball Tournament, being able to announce with Kiefer Collison, K'uuk Iiwa, who is also featured in this episode through interviewing him about this topic. So we're connecting Hodkill in introducing and encouraging further communication through media in our languages. Wagin Hodkill Ahlaang O'Day o des istlu had kilkal gusuang kasong. Agananu hausen had kilka gusue adlang gyulang song. So it's important to speak more Haida, more Hodkill, and widening the domain of Hodkill to radio, looking at my own family's personal connection to radio through my late father Kwiiyaans, my brother Iljuuwaas, and my son Wiijaa, and really holding up that legacy, also with respectfully mentioning William Wesley and Kiefer Collison. So I look forward to this episode and to this narrative, and I hope you all do as well. Weijaa, the native basketball season has come to an exciting end, with the 65th annual All-Native Basketball Tournament wrapping up in February and the 50th annual Junior All-Native Basketball Tournament ending in March. Kwiiyaans, Henu di Dad Kwiiyaans. My father's name was Kwiiyaans. Kenneth Christopher Bedard, Henu Old Yatshade Kwiiyaans. His English name was Kenneth Christopher Bedard. Spanning his lifetime, Kwiiyaans was a basketball player, coach, community sports organizer, basketball fan, and announcer of the game. Kwiiyaans has been recognized as architect of Ahlaang Old Masset's annual Christmas Classic tournament, which has now been running for 60 years. In honor of his legacy, the community hall in Ahlaang Old Masset is named after him and is called the Kwiiyaans Community Hall. Beyond Ahlaang's annual Christmas Classic tournament, Kwiiyaans is remembered as the voice of the all-native basketball tournament. For many decades, he and his good friend Wild William Wesley would deliver the play-by-play action over CFNR radio to the homes of those who couldn't make the games all along the coast. The following is a clip from the 1992 Intermediate Finals, where the Old Masset Intermediate squared off with the Kincolith team.
Hill for Bassett. Back to David Hill. Hill driving, lays it up, banks it up, no good. Taken off by Martin for Kincolith. Over to Stevens. Stevens driving, lays it up, and no, we have a foul, I believe, inside on Jerry Peel as Stevens, as Masset attempts to give their big man a rest here, William. But as I speak, Abe Brown approaches yes, he's checking in to replace Peel, and I thought there was a timeout there for a second, but apparently there was just a huddle, something that we didn't see too often in our day, William, unless we had a timeout.
Well, that's true, and it's very wise of these teams to take every opportunity to talk to one another and doing it out on the floor in the huddle.
And we got national team coach over here as well, seeking to find out how Robinson is, and he appears to be stable on this, but they have him on the tarp here. Gives it to Jason Fennell, jumper in the corner, no good, bounces off there, taken off by Alexander. Long pass ahead to Floyd Stevens. Floyd Stevens attempting to go up, and no, fouled inside by Jeff Cornell, and 33-16, William, with 5:45 to go here. Masset has seemed to have gone into a bit of a drought, and they got to be careful as this King Cola squad may just wake up a little bit here, as they seem to have trouble getting things in gear.
Well, that's true. We saw that happen a couple of times during this tournament where one team was so down and flat-footed in the first half, but they come back in the second half just a-blazing, and they see them coming back and taking the lead late in the second half and holding it to win.
From his earliest years, Kwiiyaans was an avid sports fan. Kwiiyaans had a great mind. He was able to absorb intricacies and statistics and nuances of every sport he had interest in, every professional and non-professional sport televised, written about, or played on the radio. Kwiiyaans combined this incredible, intricate knowledge of sport with his passion and love for community and his unparalleled knowledge of connectiveness and genealogy along the coast every time he called a game for CFNR. I have opportunity to sit and chat with Dad Kwiiyaans, Iljuuwaas, my older brother, Will Bedard. We talk about skuskaajuu basketball, Gatling O'Day radio, and the legacy of our late father, Kwiiyaans. And I just wanted to ask you, what are your earliest memories of the game of basketball and radio? Can you talk about that a bit?
My earliest memories of basketball were at the old George M. Dawson, and being in the bleachers, just watching basketball. Some of my memories are from the hall and the smell of A535 in the locker rooms. I remember that being a distinct smell, and going there and then playing grade 9 Booth Memorial as a Raven. And I was a point guard in grade 9, and in grade 10 I was going to become the point guard again, but I grew 3 or 4 inches. And so I was power forward. We won the zones. I was MVP. And then we actually, I believe we won the juniors that year. It was a real small tournament back in 1990. It was 15 and under back then, and it was only like not even 20 teams or 15 teams, or I can't remember. In terms of basketball, it was a huge part, growing up culturally, all native, playing for Prince Rupert Cubs, and later on the Trojans. I played for Masset for a little bit. Hurt my knee, was out of the game for a while, came back with the Trojans, played a couple years there. Hurt my other one, just kind of was out of the game really early. Kind of turned to coaching, coached a lot in the Lower Mainland, worked with my cousin Mike through some Basketball BC stuff, and I coached a few high school teams here and there. Yeah, I kind of kept connected to the game that way, and then had a family, and I got out of coaching, and then came back to coaching when they were a bit older. Took a grade 8 team to the provincial, which was nice, out of North Shore, Windsor Secondary. So that was kind of a neat coaching experience, getting to a decent level. In terms of the radio, Dad was always on the radio when we were younger. It just sounded like what he did. It was normalized. Oh, there's Dad up on the radio again. Never, you don't have any perspective. You're just pretty too self-involved when you're a kid and a teenager. Everything's through your lens and about you. So, I know that I played around with it when I was younger. Like, me and Mike would do that, the flip hockey game, and we would always call it and screw around, and we even recorded ourselves way back. And in that recording lived on for a short while, and then Darcy, Mike's sister, she recorded over it with Backstreet Boys or something. I can't remember. Anyway, so that was gone, but yeah, I was in drama when I was in school. You just look back on all the influences about why do you have an ability, play radio or, entertainment. And I look back, I was always in drama. I was kind of we were so spoiled too, thinking back to growing up in Prince Rupert, and King Edward Elementary had choir, it had band, it had theater, it had sports, it had whatever you were interested in, it had it, right? And you're taught all these, how to sing, and how to be a part of a play, and how to be part of a team. And, the coming here to Haida Gwaii, especially, it's the time, but also it's just not an expectation. And there's not the people power to maintain that kind of stuff in a small town. I listened from afar. I knew Dad was still involved, right? Over the years, I just, I was living in the city, and I didn't play. And maybe part of me was maybe disappointed and angry or whatever that I wasn't able to play anymore, and didn't want to be around it. But I knew Dad, and was either working for them or doing something, or half involved or fully involved, or calling games or working the stats or whatever. And then we came home in 2018, and then I think it was Desi around 2019 that, because they had Haida Gwaii radio, we just, everybody knows who my dad is or whatever over the years. So they just said, hey, Laptiga, why don't you go up? And then I went up, and it was, it was just natural. And I was so glad and grateful that Dad was able to hear me before he passed, just because I know a big part of him probably wanted one of us to sort of follow something that he was doing. And so I guess and he was able to give me advice, and that felt good. And then he passed, and then Peter contacted me and said, you want to come over and join the CFNR team and all that. And so I went over there to the professional game and had a tough time with the names first, but it definitely wasn't like it was my first time. So I kind of fit in pretty good with the team and learned off everyone.
Mostly dead ball, pushes the ball over to Robinson. Oh, nice defense there. Rupert. Hard defense there early on. Leighton. Robinson with the ball. Wales thought about it. Swings it over at number 10. That's Louis Thomas. Thomas for Savea outside there. Long three-pointer. Nothing going on for Robinson there. That's Cassius Robinson. Here comes Jacob Leighton. Gets himself fouled. Number 10 on the reach in there. That was Louis Thomas picking up his first personal. Back to the action. Dickens hands it off there. Nice play. Two-man game. Beautiful feed there by Dickens. Over to Jacob Leighton. 8-3 advantage early here for Rupert. Robinson. Over to Thomas. Savea, high post. Back over to Thomas. Thomas, long three-pointer. Front rims it, no good. Picked up by Basso. Big man. Oh, gets it stripped away. Nice play there by Islanders. Oh, Adams picks it up. Adams almost tosses it away over to Leighton. Leighton with the ball. Over to Adams. Tyce Adams with the ball. Adams looking for the cutter. Gets it back to Leighton. Leighton. Lot of contact. Flips it up, no good. Picked up by Robinson. Robinson gets fouled there. Bad foul there. 200 feet away from your own basket. This foul's going to be on 21. Brandon Basso, his first personal. Into the game here for the Islanders, number 12, Xavier.
Going to work on the baseline, elevating, hanging out in the air, saying, how you guys doing? I'm going to shoot. Tyce, off the glass and in for Adams. Down into the corner, Nisiok, bounce pass, almost stolen away there by Jacob. But going to jump ball, it's going to be in favor of Prince Rupert.
Just kidding. My name's Kiefer Collison. My Haida name is K'uuk Iiwaans, which means big heart. I received that at Skillay's Memorial Potlatch back when I was 11 years old. So that name is near and dear to my heart. From the Cheatskane Eagle clan, son of Roy Collison, Geltlins. And honored to be on the pod today.
I really felt strongly to do this show on skuskaajuu basketball, especially coming off of the basketball season here on the Northwest Coast, with the All-Native basketball tournament happening in February and the Junior All-Native tournament just wrapping up in March. And I got to see you down there in Langley.
It's rare and not rare to cross paths with somebody at the Junior All-Native just because of how expansive that tournament has become.
I just wanted to ask you if you have memories in your early years of listening to Kwiiyaans and Wild William Wesley on CFNR delivering some of the games at the All-Native basketball tournament, and what were your impressions back then?
Yeah, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking of it, because I remember being a kid and I would be listening to Ken and William and then Peter Lantin later on. But I remember listening to Ken and William and wanting to be one of them. In my brain, I never wanted to be the person on the court. I always had this dream and vision of me being a broadcaster, which I think is a little bit unique coming from a basketball crazy town. And I got an ego and I got pride. I wanted to be out there in the All-Native. I played a couple times, but I know my role and it's behind the desk. But no, just listening to them and knowing how accessible Ken was and how you could just talk to him, it gave me hope that I would have an introduction into becoming a broadcaster. What a time we had with those two with the headsets on. Like just the Again, two guys who were just being themselves. Like you meet Ken, you meet William, and they're exactly who they are once the headsets come off. And I think that's the kind of connection you want to have with the broadcaster. At least that's the kind of realization I had. So yeah, listening to Ken and William back into the day, and those are some of my earliest memories of them. And then of course my cousin Peter Lantin joined, and then I was like, I'm definitely going to get on someday. But yeah, so I remember hanging out in the rec center, and on their phone, their landline phone, they would be able to play the radio, so we would all crowd around the front desk and listen to Ken and Willie call the games while we're at the old Masset Rec Center when we were young teenagers and young adolescents. So it was awesome. It was a big time of year every year.
And I just wanted to know a little bit about your start commentating the games. Can you tell me a bit about that and how it's developed into your current position at CFNR, and how would you describe it?
It's a really deep love for the game. I think anyone who does it is not there, frankly, to make money. You kind of got to be a glutton for punishment and just love the moment and love the game. And well, I was like, I'll start by how I started. Peter Lantin was president of the Haida Nation, and I was doing car rides with him back and forth from Masset to Skidegate when I was on council with him. And I was in his ear, like, he's like, I can introduce you. He's like, that's all I can do. I can introduce you. So he introduced me. I went to All Native. I had like $70 in my pocket, which I borrowed off of my sister, who was a young single mother at the time. Anyway, so I went to Rupert with like $50 after I paid for the ferry. And I just went to CFNR and I said, I'll be the best worker you got. I'll work hard. I was like, I'm going to be a great broadcaster. I was like, I love the games. I was like, just please give me a shot. And they kind of just shook my head and said, nice to meet you. If anything comes up, we'll let you know. And then I got a call, and I was supposed to be on the ferry heading back to Haida Gwaii because I didn't have any money. But in true fashion, I won like $1,500 at the casino. So I decided to stay. And I was supposed to be gone when I got the call. I was supposed to be halfway through the Hecate, but I decided to stay because I had some money now. And yeah, and then I got to do halftime shows. I remember I got to interview David Suzuki the first week I was there, Nathan Cullen. I was interviewing Lenny and Dina's daughter, Aaliyah, and it was just like a pretty wild, special thing. And then they offered me a full-time job. And yeah, it's been a wild ride. Like my first job as a radio announcer, I went on the canoe journey with everyone to Gatuwas, and I ended up being a steersman. And that was a pretty life-changing journey. And it made me feel so much more connected to Haidas, as, being a half-breed and having that disassociation, being an adopted clan member for myself, kind of, you're always feeling like you're a little bit on the outskirts. And then, yeah, so it's been a pretty wild journey being, on the radio. And it's just by being terrified and saying yes every time.
On the outside, drives in, gets it to go to the turnaround. He's heated up and maybe, it almost stolen away by Oscar. You might have to get Stevens into the game here with three. No, I don't know.
He's got 3 personal fouls. Maybe with a minute left, put him back in, but it's very dangerous with three personal fouls.
Because they're going to be going, you got to trust your squad. You're here in the finals. 3-pointer to stop the run. Back iron, no good. Rebound. Hustled rebound there by Clifton. Doing it all. Darby Griffin.
Yeah, like Dad's inspiration is right there. Like everybody that's there pretty much. I don't think he never worked with Kobe, but that sort of like, standing on the shoulders of giants thing, that's applicable, to William and Dad and the whole, everybody who also worked on the tech side. I know that Craig really has a great memory of Dad and working with him. And I think, they all feel up to Yolanda Leighton, who does a great job, her and Tanya Vance with getting sponsors, so we have more games to call. It's just grown as people, and you see it in the youth, right? Like it's unquestioned now, like the idea of their culture and their language and who they are. Like that's a foundation for them, right? And there's a lot of spaces that have been created for them to build that pride and build that idea of self that we didn't necessarily grow up with in mainstream society in particular. But I think that's changed a lot. I think like on the ground, it maybe hasn't really changed in terms of like the constructs that we live in and the systems we live in. But I think the opportunity for the feel that pride that you as an Indigenous person have a right to occupy and be and have space and you can contribute and you hold value. I have 3 names, and Iljuuwaas is one of them. K'uuk Iiwaans and Kitla. Kitla is a health sick name given to me at birth by old Nani Emma.
I just wanted to ask you what you like, how you would characterize Dad's impact on radio and the game of basketball here on the coast, his legacy.
That's a big question. I think back to him and Wild William Wesley being the pioneers in 2 of the First Nations. I don't know if you call it VJ or DJ or whatever you want to call it, working for the radio in Terrace, and then Dad has an interest in doing play-by-play, so he goes down and starts calling men's leagues games. Then he invites William down to call these league games in Terrace, and then they moved to Rupert to start calling the All Native, and they were actually calling them from the crowd on the other side, the bleachers, originally between all the fans, and then they got their perch there by the dressing room, and yeah, he was the first. They were the guys, right? And calling like 30 plus games in a week, up to 35, which is incredible. I'm not taking anything away from that, but I don't know how the quality kept up. That's pretty tiring. I mean, you know, they've created that foundation to allow us now to have like 6 people calling games or 7, right? As opposed to just 2 of them. And, you know, Peter came on, as a young guy with them. Willis, the actual transition from playing.
Peter Lantin and Willis Parnell.
Yeah. And then Kiefer Collison. You know, this obviously a huge influence for Mass at Haidas, family or not. And he mentored all those guys. And with William also being part of that, creating space for them, allowing them to get that confidence and to, you know, they all have a love for the game or a love for calling games for sure, right? You wouldn't keep coming back every year if you didn't like doing it. And, you know, Peter's like our leader now, like he's the elder statesman, and it's a real hierarchical thing too. But I have no problem with any, like, I'm just always, you know, I'm still happy to be there, but to some degree, yeah. I do want to speak about my nephew too, because a few years ago, I always knew in those conversations with him about like his opinion, and a very strong opinion, and it's an informed opinion. That can be biased at times, but he's young. But it is an informed opinion. And he had one, and he knew a lot about basketball. Obviously more about contemporary, but he also knows about throwback. So, and he liked to talk. So, you know, comes by it naturally. And he was sitting there in he was sitting there on his laptop watching a game or something, telling me about it. And I just looked at him. I go, "You need to come up to the radio booth." It was so obvious. It was so an obvious moment where I just was like looking at him, going, yeah. And then he started coming up, and then, you know, the rest is history with him. You know, he just this personality, his humor, comedic timing, enthusiasm, all those things. Became an instant star. Kiefer loves him. You know, it's just like that. It's eventually it's going to be your Wiijaa's Goggy.
Yeah, Weege is incredible. I got goosebumps thinking about some of the laughs we had and talking about the mascots. And it's not to like blow Weege's confidence up too much, but it's not easy to put the headset on. We've had a lot of people come through and, kind of fumble under the pressure and stumble their words, and they're not confident in their own voice, and they're kind of afraid to be witty and have a little bit of humility. But Weege just embodies who he is, and it comes through on the mic. And I just have so much fun going back and forth with Wiijaa, because I throw everything at Weege, and he's always got a pretty good answer. So that's exactly what you want. But it's a rare thing to have, and anyone who's put on the headset for some time would realize just how quick-witted Weege is and how easy it is to call a game with him, because sometimes it's not so easy. Braden bringing the ball down the floor, trailing by 8. Spins, turn around, no good. Big rebound there by Sam. Stolen away. Great steal there by Charles. Kai.
Good defense, but Katai gets it back. Katai to Chison with the bumper. Vickers has it. Vickers.
Heads up play there by Katai.
Great. Yeah, maybe how I expected you to shoot, so that pass is really good. Vickers. Long 3.
Rolls around, didn't get it to go. It's going to be Kitchell's ball. Time not on the side of the Grizzlies.
Only 5 of 6 left, there was no shot clock.
Inspired by Kwiiyaans, my dad, by Gitla, or Iljuuwaas, K'uuk Iiwaans, my older brother, and Wiijaa, my son. I reached out to Balance Media. This past December, during the 50th annual Christmas Classic tournament, I called my very first basketball game, but I did it all in Hodkill.
Again, House and Jesse, Skylar, the Ungang, Fowls, August, Go, Giandang.
First his son, then his grandson, now his daughter following in his footsteps. I will leave the final words to Kwiiyaans, recorded a few months before he passed away in 2021. Right before his final words, I'd like to acknowledge that he's speaking at the CFNR Roundtable, All Native Basketball Tournament Roundtable, and the clips heard throughout this podcast are from CFNR, either archival material from the earlier days calling a game between Kitkatla and Masset, and other games were from the Junior All-Native Tournament this past March 2026. And thank you to Yolanda Leighton, who I reached out to for support and for permission. Thank you to William Wesley and for your support. Thank you to Kiefer Collison and my brother Will and my son Wiijaa for being featured on this episode. We miss you, Kwiiyaans. Dung Sali Ik Edang.
And I really look forward to if I can't be there, to listen to all you young bucks, as William and I call you guys, and you're doing a great job, and keep us well informed. And it's just an honor, to be here today. And basically, I'm very, very proud that we had a hand in developing broadcast program that comes to our fans every year, and especially was what really delighted us was that everybody loves the game, and that's very important. And just go without saying that love you guys and appreciate the job you're all been doing, and my lifelong friendship with my brother, my whack from K'uuk Iiwa, and it means a lot to me to be able to go to the gym and look up and see you guys doing the job, and knowing that the fans are getting the best coverage that you could ever ask for. Oh.
Great. How Ken? Yeah, it's really good to check in with you. I didn't know what you were going through the last year, but it's good to see you